Welcome to the Principles of Performance podcast, where we discuss how to optimize your health, fitness, and performance. Drawing on decades of experience of working as coaches, consultants, and trainers to top performers, athletes, and teams from professional sports to top universities to the U.S. military, Eric DeGatti and Mike Perry discuss topics and strategies of how to perform at your highest level and be your very best. Join us and our friends and colleagues who are leaders in the fitness and performance industry as we investigate and challenge the most popular training, nutrition, lifestyle, and recovery protocols. And away we go. Here we are with the Principles of Performance podcast. I am your host, Eric DeGatti, along with my friend and co-host, Mike Perry. Mike, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here again, buddy. We've got another home run for our guest today. Man, we've been lucking out. And before I steal your thunder with our next guest, I'm going to let you finish up with our introduction.
So we're on episode 68. And what little we've learned in just over a year we've done this is 3 things add up to ratings gold. 1 is find a legend in the industry, which we've lucked out and had a couple of. This guy certainly qualifies. 2 is find really, really smart people. He clicks the box for that. And 3, most importantly, get somebody with a really awesome accent. This guy is the triple threat. He hits all 3. So if you've never heard of Alwyn Cosgrove, you're probably in the wrong industry. He's a legendary coach, educator, and presenter in the fitness industry who was born in Scotland, as you'll figure out very quickly through his accent. And now I'm going to have the second coolest accent on this podcast, Mike. And so he started off with a sports martial arts background and then began reading and studying about training. And that led to his degree in sports performance and then in sports science. And then he started Results Fitness with his wife, Rachel, out in Santa Clarita, California, which has twice been named one of the top 10 gyms in America by Men's Health and Women's Health magazines. In addition to their gym, he and Rachel also own a professional consulting company called Results Fitness University. And as an author, Alwyn is a sought after expert for writing for a bunch of different publications from Men's Health, Men's Fitness, Elite Fitness, T-Nation, Bodybuilding, you name it. He's also been co-author of a couple of books with Lou Schuler, including the new Rules of Lifting series, as well as Strong. And we are honored to have him. Alwyn, welcome.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Mike said it's a home run. I would reserve judgment on that case. The next 45 minutes is awful. I'll try my best.
Well, the good thing is we can edit, anything that comes out terrible. So we should be good. But so we're going to dive right in.
Podcast comes out next week.
I know, right? All right. So you and Rachel have stood behind the claim that you're looking to really change the way that fitness is done at Results Fitness. Explain what you saw early on in your career and, how the industry was sort of being carried out, and what do you think has changed, and why did you decide, hey, this is something that I want to do?
I think probably a better phrase would be, we want to change the way the fitness profession is done, right? Like maybe not fitness training itself as somehow something as a misinterpretation. I think I was never proud to say I was a personal trainer, right? Like looking at the guys around me and the average guy in the industry, like, I mean, the people listening to this podcast are probably not the people I'm talking about, right? So, I just was always like if I told you like my friend from Edinburgh was going to come in the podcast on a second and join us, and he's the number 1 plastic surgeon in Europe, or he's the number 1 lawyer in Scotland. You're picturing a successful person, and if you're another lawyer, you'd be proud, of that. But when you say, here's my friend, he's the number 1 personal trainer in London, like, you don't know, right? Like you don't know, you know what I mean, right? So I always thought, like, why aren't we looked at with that same type of? I mean, if somebody owned 5 restaurants, you think of them as successful and good. If somebody was a chef, and most of us, right? I asked this at Perform Better one year. Some of us have been doing this so long. You could have been a doctor and a lawyer, right? You spent so much time doing it. So I think it was just this, a frustration with the standards of our profession. And I use the term profession loosely with some of the other people. And I just really wanted to be seen as a professional person who cared about people. And I've said it's actually easy to succeed in this profession because the standards aren't that high. And it hurts to say, but it's true, right? So we've just decided that we wanted to be, my worst critic would have to go, that guy's a pro, right? Like they're running a good organization over at Results Fitness, and they got good people, and they help a lot of people. So it's really been that idea, that drive. That, I mean, if I said name of a weight loss TV show, when you see those and you see the trainers on it, are you so proud that these are our people? Right? We're not, right? If you see a trainer on Law and Order or CSI, probably the killer, right? If you see them on a comedy show, it's usually a meathead or like a ditzy, like, dumb blonde girl type idea, right? We're never portrayed as professionals, and we have to own it ourselves, right? Like in California, during the lockdown, liquor stores and marijuana stores were considered essential. Exercising was considered illegal. We do that to ourselves, right? Because it's about butts and buns and guns, right? And it's not about really helping people. So that's still my mission to this day, is just to raise the standards of our profession, and be the people that we deserve to be, and there's good people here. Like I said, the people listening to this podcast, I'm not talking about you guys, because you continue to listen and educate yourself. So let's just step it up together.
So when I think of your work, Alwyn, I pulled a quote that I thought you'd appreciate, since you're a martial arts guy. It's Bruce Lee always said, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. You've done a really good job of kind of blending and practically applying a lot of different methods and disciplines into what you do. So what kind of has allowed you to make that soup and become this, as Kelly Starrett says, that savage generalist?
I think for those people who don't know who Bruce Lee is, because he passed in 1973, so I was sure some younger audiences on, but Bruce Lee did a movie, Enter the Dragon, in 1973, and the opening scene, it looks like the UFC, right? They've got the same type of gloves on, they got the trunks on, and they kick, punch, and the fight ends up going to the ground with a submission. 1993 was when the UFC first came around, so he was 20 years ahead. The idea was this, another Bruce Lee thing was to liberate yourself from the classical mess. Because at the time, the UFC was created, and younger listeners won't realize this, it was created to find out which was the most superior martial art when they went head to head. Now, unknowns to a lot of people, it was created by the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family with a rule set that meant Jiu-Jitsu was probably going to win. And it dominated for a while. And now we don't even talk about that. When they introduce the fighters, we don't talk about, here is Eric. Eric is a judo fighter. And here's Mike. He is a wrestler out of Louisiana, right? They'll describe you as a mixed martial artist. And they may describe you as having a good ground game or a good stand-up game, because the jiu-jitsu dominated in the beginning because no one knew how to fight off their back. And then once guys started to understand to defend the takedown, kickboxers won for a while because the jiu-jitsu guys and the wrestlers couldn't handle that. Then they all learned striking defense, and the wrestlers dominated for a while. And now you can't come in with one skill set anymore. The game is over, right, if you're coming in with that. So that's kind of always been my approach to training, is that does bodybuilding work? Well, of course it does. Otherwise it'd be called bodybuilding, right? It works. Does it work for an athlete trying to drop a weight class? Maybe not, right? There's mobility work, there's Pilates work. I've always had this thing like, are you an Olympic lifter guy or a powerlifting guy? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like these are asking a doctor, hey, are you like do you like a ibuprofen guy? Or are you like more of a Tylenol guy? Like, these are just tools, right? So I've always felt if you walked in Results Fitness at certain times, it might look like calisthenics and Pilates place, right? And other times it'll look like a hardcore powerlifting, right? But these are just, I just feel like they're. I think it was my own insecurity of not understanding training that led me to just like, you come out of college and you think you know everything, and then I went to an Olympic lifting cert and I was like, man, I don't know anything. And then I went to Paul Check and I was like, no, I really don't know anything, right? And then you listen to a one set to failure guy and you're like, some of this makes kind of sense, right? Like, and just my own sort of intellectual restlessness was to try to find the answer as the one true system. What was the one best martial art? What is the one best fitness training system? And the answer is none of the above, right? The question, if you want to do at 5K, you might want to do some running. Just throwing it out there, right? Like you might need to have an endurance training program. And if you're doing powerlifting, perhaps not so much. But it was really my own curiosity to try to find the answers. And I'm still looking, to be honest. But as a result, it comes that the answer is and I mean it respectfully, Matt. The answer is probably closer to the CrossFit modality and description that I feel a lot of CrossFit gyms don't practice. This idea that we have multiple qualities that we could train. I don't feel like that's the answer for everybody, but I can't throw out any training method. I mean, I've thrown out a few that are just terrible, but we won't bring them up. But the idea of the answer to the training methodology might just be bodybuilding, right? That might be the answer for this skinny kid, right? It might be something else. It might be circuits. It might be interval training. But I just was everything that I looked at a certain point seemed to have it. I mean, even the one set to failure guys, well, if that didn't work, why would two sets work? 2 times nothing would still be nothing, right? So one set has to work, right? And then you start looking at if you look at maybe some of the powerlifting methodology, the difference, the commonalities of that were the intensity and the execution with maybe a bodybuilding machine program, but the movement patterns were similar and the execution was similar. So the modalities perhaps weren't really important. So I guess the reason for it, that I want, as much as Bruce Lee, I think, was the godfather of mixed martial arts, I've always approached training like that I don't want to pick a team. I want everything. The answer in a fight might be a kick. It might be a grappling situation. But if you went in with only one tool, nothing, you're going to be in trouble. And I feel training's the same way. I didn't, when the TRX came out, I didn't want it to work, right? Because then I have to rewrite all my shit, right? Like I got to put everything together. You can't ignore it. I didn't want kettlebells to be good. I really didn't want sandbags to be good. But man, you can't ignore that stuff when you start seeing the results, and you got to adopt it into your own martial art, right?
Well, I think one of the things is, and we talk about it on our course, that there's safety in our silos. Like it feels warm and cozy when I'm the kettlebell guy, because I'm going to surround myself with all kettlebell people. And I think the whole world revolves around the clean, the snatch, the swing, and the get up, right? And so there's a lot of discomfort once we kind of peek out of that silo and look the other way. I remember when it's funny, you mentioned Paul Check. I did 2 levels of Paul's internship, and I had a guy, actually another strength coach I was doing a camp with, come up to me. He's like, "I can't talk to you. You're a Check guy." I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, "Oh, well, you're a Check guy. I don't believe in that stuff." I go, "Well, I'm also a Poliquin guy, and I'm also a Gray Cook, and I'm also Mike Boyle, and I'm also like, do you need me to keep going? Like, you're just one guy?"
That's the weird part, right? Like if you went to a martial arts thing, you wouldn't be like, "I can't talk to you. You do kung fu." Right, I'm a kickboxer. It's absurd in any other field, right? But it's just a weird thing that that Bruce Lee quote, "Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own," is that idea that there's something there that's useful and there's something there that might not be, and both of those may be specific to you or in our world, our client. That this could be the answer. Right, and it could be a terrible choice for someone else, but it's I think you're right. Is that there's this and I think that martial arts example is a good one. Is that the karate guys didn't accept that a wrestler could beat them. The wrestlers didn't think that they could not be taken down, right? And then you start realizing that there's a different world out there, and I just think it's naive of us to not look at other training systems. But when I say this stuff, it sounds like I've got this massive box of every certification in the world. Some stuff doesn't cut it, right? Some stuff doesn't work when you get into the octagon in the UFC, right? So some training methodologies don't stand the test of time. I think a good example is the TRX. I feel like eliminated a lot of stability ball work from my programming. It just was a better tool for what I was trying to do. So I think I still have a stability ball in the gym, but I have like 12 TRXs. So that's an example of that suspension training, that top-down instability was better than the bottom-up one for most of our clients. So it wasn't that the stability ball wasn't any good. It's just that something else came along and this became a little bit discarded.
So, you were talking about keeping what works and discarding what does not. And, I own my own facility. We have a pretty significant group training program. And look, when as well as anyone, right? When you're designing a group training program, you need to pick a lot of what works. So, one of the things that you did, and I really appreciate this because I've absolutely stolen at least part of this from you. So I appreciate that. But one of the things that coaches forget about.
You can't steal anything when I'm giving it away. I'm always clear on that.
Fair enough.
You can't be a teacher and be mad someone learns. So it's all yours, Mike. Feel free to use anything.
Love it. All right. Love it. So, one of the things that you did is you kind of reverse engineered and you set your facility up to match the flow of your training sessions. And that's something that honestly, before you did it, I really never heard of that. So what was it about that? Like, how did you come up with that idea?
So everything that you see is really a solution to a problem, right? It was within a small facility. How can I maximize my space? And a lot of your training time becomes this like we wanted to pair a squat with a row, but the cable machine's the other end of the gym. So we lose all this training time. And it just became like, where would I warm people up? And what would I do after that? Well, let me just make it easy for flow, that once you finish this section, the equipment that you would use would be here, right? So the original idea when the small space was to move through the gym kind of in a circle, right? So you move to the next section. And what does it really well is Mike Boyle's guys. They've got like the next group's coming in like 12 minutes. You got to be off the warm-up area in 12 and then a core or whatever they do next. But that was the idea, is that, when people ask me that, like, what equipment should I get? My first question is, what's your training philosophy? Like, what does your training philosophy look like? And that will determine your equipment. And then what does a session look like, right? What would that look like and how would that flow? Because once you dial that in a small space, you can add an extra person per hour, right? Because we're not taking up, we're using the equipment. So that the idea being is and a conveyor belt's a horrible term, but that's what I wanted to create. This idea that the client arrives and goes through the training program and finishes this almost through the gym in a circle. And, they finish the same place as they checked in. And ideally they have their post-workout nutrition there. So it's just like a complete circle. But again, solution to a problem is that how do I fit more people in without it just being a complete cluster with everybody crossing over and sharing equipment? Like that if you always pair two exercises together, right? If you always pair, a core with a medicine ball throw, well, put the medicine balls in that same section where you do core, right? Make it easy for yourself. So that's really the idea, was like, looking at we don't run a gym, we run a training center, and this is what the workout is going to look like, and slightly different for everybody, but that same concept is that what's the next obvious piece of equipment, and let me make it close for the client.
Now, I think what's important that you said is not only buy the equipment to match your training philosophy, but it should also match your clientele. I remember there was a guy when I was opening up my facility a bunch of years ago. He hired Charles Poliquin to come in and set up his facility, and it was amazing. He had all this incredible strength equipment and chains and all these things. The only problem was he was training like 45-year-old housewives. Like, this isn't applicable for who you're working with. That woman's never going to get on that $2,000 glute ham bench that you just bought. So have the foresight, I think, to predict who it is you actually want to work with as the end user.
Well, we used to have it too. It's interesting you say that, Eric, because you three of us are very comfortable in the gym. You don't feel intimidated, right? Like you come in and you're fine, right? You spend more time in it than you've not. You used to walk in my gym and you'd see the heaviest dumbbells in the squat rack just as soon as you walked in, right? Now, you don't think of that as being intimidating, because we're not intimidated, but it can be for beginners. So I've moved it that my kind of squat racks are a little out of the line of sight when you first walk in. My heaviest dumbbells, you'd have to look for them, right? Everything looks kind of open, and that's by design. Like if I walked into like a kickboxing facility and like it was full contact fighting and teeth on the floor and blood everywhere, like I found my home, right? But you wouldn't take your daughter there. You wouldn't take her there and feel comfortable, right? And that's not a question on the instructors. That's not a question on anything other than your initial impression. So your equipment does have to match your clientele, right? And the big glute hams are, for me in my space, like that's the size of my car. I can't park my car inside my gym with one of these things, right? For what's essentially there's a couple of exercises you can do on that. Powerlifters, don't get mad at me. There's a couple of exercises you can do on that. but it's largely a single piece of equipment that takes up a lot of space. That doesn't fit in my facility design philosophy. I need multiple use equipment, right? So I have a little floor version of one of those that I can flip up and put away. But yeah, it does have to match who you're training, and I feel it has to be multiple use. I know at one point we had the collegiate racks, and they had the huge platforms that were just unnecessary. I had nobody power cleaning that much, right? And we had the chin and bar was like the collegiate one, which is like 8 feet in the air, right? So nobody could just jump up and grab the chin and bar. So we bought them and they were great, but then you're like, that's a little a little jam in the system. That I need to have steps for my clients to climb up. I can't spot somebody on a chin up because they're 40 feet higher than me, right? So it does. It's what's your training philosophy and who's your target market, right? And we take it in from there.
So let's discuss when you're doing group training, semi-private training, the impact of community and support systems. And you were one of the pioneers that kind of brought semi-private into the lexicon of personal training. Talk a little bit about the difference of traditional one-on-one versus semi-private versus group training, and how that community and support system element fits into all that.
But I get credited a lot for inventing it. I have to say, I'm sure someone was doing it before me, but I do know I had no one to ask. I didn't know who to turn to ask how to do that. So we define, for the record, one-on-one training, everybody knows what it is. We define semi-private as it's people doing different programs with one head coach supervising it, right? We call it maitre d' system that we're around, but they're on different programs. Small group is people like our 3 of us working out together, right? Doing the same. Maybe we change the weights or something, right? But we're doing pretty much the same program. So semi-private was a solution to a problem. I was doing one-on-one training. My schedule was full. We had Rachel, my wife, doing one-on-one training. Her schedule was full, and we hired a staff member, and her schedule was full, and our bank accounts were not full. But the gym was completely packed because now there's 6 people in a small space. Then I realized that I could train probably 3 to 4 myself, right? So the first part was the solution to a problem is, could I train more people at a time without going to completely generic training, which I'm fine with, by the way, but could I just keep the program the same and just supervise at the same time? And then one time I actually made a scheduling error, and I had 2 guys show up at the same time. And they were very similar demographics. And we finished, the last exercise was kind of like a gun show stuff where they did arm curls and dips, right? And both guys PR'd with the same coach in the same program. Both guys PR'd because they were there together, and they were having fun, just training hard. So my second thought was, I thought maybe the small group, the semi-private model would allow me to scale up, but maybe there'd be a drawback and the results wouldn't be as good, right? Because I wouldn't get the same interaction, the same supervision. But over the years, I found that not to be true. I think one-on-one is inferior in every aspect. That physical therapy, stroke rehab, cardiac rehab, spinal rehab are all done in groups, right? See people high-level strength and conditioning with professional athletes are done in groups. So we've got this zone in between that we've traditionally done one-on-one. I used to teach how to do semi-private. Now I just ask the audience to tell me why one-on-one is better and back it up with real evidence, because there's none. It's not better. The group dynamic changes it. And from a model for everybody's business, it stops being like, if the 3 of us are working out together every Monday night, every Wednesday night, and every Friday, we blow off legs and we go get beers. If we're meeting together 3 times a week and the coach changes, we'll stay at the gym, because it's not just about the coach, it's about us. Like, it's about the 3 of us being together, and we keep each other accountable, and we push each other a little bit. Because I'll watch clients and they'll be like, hey, Eric, when you coming in next? And you're like, oh, I'm not until Thursday morning. You're like, all right, I'll come Thursday morning too. I'll see you in here, right? And it becomes like more than just the trainer-client relationship, and it becomes the client-client. Like if you were going to train for anything, right? You're going to train for the UFC or a 10K race or an obstacle course race. Wouldn't it be better to have a couple of guys training with you? That's kind of the idea. Like, it's not just the coach, it's like the camaraderie of it. You watch the little highlight things of boxing matches, and you see guys training. You see them training together. Like, there'll be other guys working out, and there's something there. Like people don't want to be on their own, right? They just generally don't. I tell this joke: if you go out to dinner with your wife or girlfriend and another couple, and one of the ladies needs to use the restroom, there's a field trip from the table. They all go together. They don't even want to pee on their own, right? And most guys will want to watch, like, I'll watch soccer, boxing, I'll watch sports, and I would rather watch it with people than just silent in my room. And then when it comes to exercise, we try to separate that instead of taking advantage of it. So again, solution to a problem that it became, I think, a superior way of like, it's just a delivery system of your knowledge as a coach, right? So young coaches might not be able to handle 3 or 4 people at a time, but that doesn't mean one-on-one is a superior in every aspect. When you look at the research, probably due to group dynamics and energy, is that the group format produces better results, and from the business it allows you to have more clientele, and for the client it allows a lower barrier to entry, because to fill up my schedule one-on-one would be a little more expensive than if you join one of my groups, right? So everybody wins, right?
Hey, everybody, a quick break in the action here. Hope you're enjoying the show, and we appreciate you listening. We're working hard to bring you the highest quality content and best guests every single week. So if you could do us a big favor and go and like and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you get your podcasts on, it would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to listen at the end of the show also to find out more information about our courses, as well as a special discount code for all our listeners. Thanks again, and let's get back to the show. So speaking of solutions for client success, we know that it comes down to habits and consistency. And one of the things that I've been reading that you started to do lately is rather than saying, well, here's your cardio workout, because none of us are going to get paid to stand by somebody while they're on the treadmill or the Stairmaster, whatever it is. So we have to prescribe some sort of cardio prescription, but you've been moving towards just, let's look at how many steps you get. And that ends up getting back sometimes better activity throughout their day as it just a habit of just spontaneous physical activity. Talk about how that kind of mind shift has come about, and like what other tricks have you used to kind of install good daily habits like that?
So the caveat to that, obviously, if you're training for a cardio event, like, I gotta maybe have a little higher intensity work attached to that. But for a general fitness body comp people, I'm of the opinion that like aerobic work doesn't move the needle that much anyway beyond the calories burned. Right, 30 minutes on a treadmill will be, if you're really pushing it, right, and with accurate measurement, maybe somewhere around 270 to 300 calories, 9 to 10 calories a minute, right? So you would need to do something like 12 sessions of those before you would burn off the equivalent of a pound of fat. So it's just a measure of activity, right? Like, again, we're not talking cardio health. Now, what I've found, and there's a good study on this, and they did it with a senior population. And they went from 2 strength training sessions and 2 cardio sessions a week. And these people had an upregulation of their non-exercise activity by about 200 calories, right? So they burned calories during training, and then the rest of the day, because they felt good, they burned a little bit more, right? So there were another 1,400 a week just in movement. And then they put another group, demographically indistinguishable, and put them on 3+3. So 3 strength, 3 cardio. And what they found is that these people reduced their daily activity by about 100 calories. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but you realize one goes up 200 and one's down 100. That's a 300 switch. That's 2,000 calories a week. That's a day of food, right? So the extra training sessions were canceled out by them being tired, right? That they moved less because they were fatigued from training. So when I was looking at body comp people, my first thing was that this was my spell check that the program is working. If your steps dropped, right, if your steps drop below a number, and I choose 10,000. I just seen a study yesterday, actually, that it seems to be lower than that. That there seems to be a major jump, like going from 4,000 to 8,000 is a big jump. After 8, maybe not as much, but I chose 10 to make it easy. We will add training if we can keep those steps up. right? And the second those steps drop, I'm pulling back on training. And then it became like, if you were really active every day, Eric, and you were given like 12,000 steps a day and you're trying to like do a body comp phase with me, I don't think that 20 minutes in the treadmill is going to make much difference at that point. Now, if you're a desk job 8 hours a day and you're like, at the end of an 8 hour day, I've taken 3,000 steps. All right, we might need to get on the bike and do a little extra work, right? So if we're using it for energy burning purposes to create a deficit, anything that we do that impacts the NEAT, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the normal movement of day-to-day living, is a negative. So you could add that, and you'll see it if you go to the Olympic Training Center. You're watching these athletes training super hard, and they walk like they're in slow motion, man. They're so tired from training, like they conserve every piece of energy they have. That's great when you're doing 4 hours of training a day as an elite athlete. But for our clients, what I was finding was, and the science backs it up, is there's a threshold where there's an energy constraint hypothesis where the body starts to move less as a result of your exercise. And there's going to be a point where it's a wash, right? And in that example, going from 223 to 33 ended up being a 300 calorie a day energy difference. That's significant. I mean, that's 2,100 calories a week. So I don't know if that would level out over time. So I do prescribe cardio still, but I look at it in terms of, if I'm doing this for a body comp purpose, I'm doing it for calorie burning. And if you're already moving a lot, I doubt this moves the needle. 20 minutes, 3 days a week, I doubt moves the needle at all, right? So we start with that. A friend of mine, Stan Efferding, that I wrote a book called The Vertical Diet. He was I was out in Moscow with him a few years ago, and he showed me a good study that a 10-minute walk after meals outperformed doing like 40 minutes of cardio a day. That little dose of just getting your steps in. That's about 1,000 steps for people, right? So it's like I call it the get out of cardio free card. If you keep your movement up, I won't put you on the treadmill. If your movement drops off, you owe me the treadmill. And with one of my body comp clients, as like for every 1,000 he was below 10,000, he owed me 2,000 steps. So if he's at 9,000, I'm like, you got to get on the treadmill for 20, right? You got to go 11. But it's just that idea of if what we're trying to do is increase the activities of daily living and have these people move a little bit more, then it doesn't always have to be formal exercise. And sometimes that formal exercises causes them to go to bed just a little bit earlier, wake up a little bit later, move a little bit less, and then you've cancelled it out. It's why sometimes a hard training program, the client generally is training hard and is eating well, but their body is not a calculator. The body is figuring out, like you have to like nudge it slightly. So we call it it's the 10,000 steps rule. It really started as when I added training. If your activities of daily living dropped, that was my sign we were moving the wrong direction.
You know, one of the things I think we've done as an industry has done a really shitty job of making people think that fitness has to be in these packages, that it has to be an hour or it doesn't count, right? And so like when I've been moving towards with like cardio prescriptions and say, look, I want this much per week. I don't care how you get to it. And I'd actually almost prefer if it was in smaller bites, because similar to some of the research you were talking about, there was some research, I don't know if you saw it, where they took people and put in the control group was 30 minutes of cardio and the other group was 3 10-minute bouts of cardio. Like instead of one exercise bout, they did a walk in the morning, walk at lunch, walk after work. And that 3 time per day group had higher compliance and better, just as much net calories burned, if not more. So the fact that we think it has to come in this 1 hour package is just really shitty marketing on our end.
Yeah, I think that maybe the study that Stan pointed out to me was that idea, these like small doses. And I think one of them seemed to be a little bit better for blood sugar regulation with the multiple exposures. I think I've started playing it with some of the strength training stuff too, is that, instead of it like, 5 sets of 5 or whatever, I'm like, I need 25 reps, however you want to get it. Right, like so, your first set you might want to get 6. You might like it. Just a little bit of autonomy. Is I doubt there will be a difference. If you could do it as 1 set of 25 with the reasonable weight, right, or 5 sets of 5. If those weights were the same, do you think 4 sets of 6 in a single versus 5 sets of 5 there'd be any difference? So there's a little part of that I've been playing with too, is just like we also do a poor job of like I just wrote about this actually. I used to believe there was strength training and then there was cardio, and there were these two boxes that had to be checked. But what about like kettlebell swings? Is that strength or is that cardio? I feel like it's in this zone of both or none. Like, but there's power in this zone too, right? Like a heavy lunge is strength. Multiple lunges is a little more cardio. A sled push is cardio, as is uphill running, as is running. But that's just like a continuum. I think we should surf it, right? We should be playing at both ends and in the middle, right? Like, so you can get a lot of benefits that, again, it's not just boxes of time. It's this, now I'm doing cardio. Like you'll see people, I think it was Jen Sinclair used to people, she was her weight training program, and people go, what do you do for cardio? And she goes, I lift weights faster, right? That's our idea, is like there's still an effect, there's still a metabolic effect of doing some type of circuit thing. So I think that, to your point, is it could be smaller. I mean, the Tabata protocol, which very few people actually do, by the way, was less than 4 minutes, right? But that's not how most people are doing it. But the idea that you have to hit 20 minutes or 30 or 45 is not, it practically becomes an issue, but it's not even, founded in science anymore, right? We can't say, oh, you stopped at 19, well, no results for you, right? That's not how it works, right? So and I think that I also want to say that I think when we say we've done a poor job, I like to think we all did the best we knew how, right? Like we've learned more, and our programs have evolved and adapted. But I can remember writing 30 minutes cardio on an empty stomach for fat burning, right? And it just is, sorry everybody that I made get up early and be hungry. I was wrong. It didn't work any better.
So we're gonna change gears a little bit and talk about the business a little bit more. And one of the things that Eric and I discuss a lot about when we're teaching is the idea of retention, right? Retention is so important, yet people talk about acquisition. So one of the things we always say is like, look, a really, really good training program that's based off of principles is one of the keys to client retention, but people don't think of it that way. Why do you think that people sort of discard the idea of program design in general?
I'll be blunt. It gives them an out for shitty programming, right? That's the real answer. Like if you were, and I've experienced this with for listeners, I had a couple of bouts of cancer back up quite a while ago, and I had issues afterwards with the endocrine system and thyroid, and going to one doctor, things weren't getting better, right? So I sought out another doctor. The first doctor was arguably nicer, and it was easier for me to go, and did not get me the result I was looking for. So I looked elsewhere for that. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do in with retention. Culture, recognition, trust, community. That they're all big parts of it. But at the heart of it is the results themselves. And I'm going to take it even a step further. Perhaps they get no results, but the process of training with you is so much fun because this program is excellent and I really enjoy it. Right? It's fun and I like coming in, and I do it, and I only get a little bit. I saw somebody write this a little while ago that, and it set up quite nicely. He goes, I've had a client for 3 years, and I'll be honest, he hasn't gotten any stronger. He really hasn't lost any body fat, and he just comes in 3 times a week. He doesn't miss a session, but I don't know how much better he's getting. But I've enjoyed the last 3 years of training this 87-year-old man. And I'm like, well, that guy may have backslid if it wasn't for you, first of all, right? So well done. But the results he got was perhaps more about maintaining and the community of training at your place, right? So I think like the program itself, I believe it has to get people to their destination, right? If you got on a plane and it circled around for 4 hours and you landed back where you took off from, you're going to be upset, right? So it's got to take you to where you want it to be. But that process is overlooked sometimes, that it has to be a good time. And I take training serious, but I don't make it serious. Like if you know me, I'm kind of like, I'll be joking around and having a sense of humor with people. But I think we should take it seriously, but we can make it fun, right? And it should, the process itself. But the original point is that the reason I think it's overlooked is because you don't have to like look at your average result in the mirror, right? If I came in and took a client's training diary and I pulled up a year ago and pulled up an exercise that says dumbbell row, how much more are they lifting today, right? And maybe it's not much, but you should be able to audit your programs and you say, you know, like I think that when the first New Rules of Lifting book, it was 04, we wrote that, 03 or 04, and it still sells today, and it bugs me because that's not like that's not what I do anymore, right? Like we've kind of evolved, but I think it is they'll come for the results and they may stay for the community, but that doesn't mean the results become unimportant, right? That the experience of training with you and the community is a big part of it. But please don't get my words twisted, everybody that's listening, is somebody should be getting better with you, or at the very least, in that earlier example of the 87-year-old gentleman, that they should be maintaining some level of quality of life and just everything in their life. We have a saying that we want to be the best part of our members' day every day, right? That this is your 7th hour on the floor today training your clients, but it's their only hour with you, and you got to make it you got to make it great. You got to rock the mic and make it great.
Well, I think something you said there resonates with me now, 25 years in, way more than it would have, Eric that started 24 years ago, was what your expectation of success is and being able to frame that. And there's an expression I actually just heard today is that, about sometimes you don't need to be the best, but you need to be the best to all the other alternatives. And so, a story that sticks out in my mind is one of the athletes I trained as a college kid. He said, he has I just give him some basic work he does on his own at a big box gym. And he said, coach, there's this guy who's there every day and he's a big fat guy. And he says, all he does is lift weights. And should I go up and tell him he needs to be doing cardio instead? And I said, if there's a big fat guy at the gym and he keeps showing up, your number one job is to go up and say, hi, how are you? Make him feel comfortable and become his friend. That's it. He keeps showing up. That's a win.
That's true. I mean, I think you're also like, what if that big fat guy has lost 300 pounds already and knows more about fat loss than any of us, right? Like, I can't take the snapshot. Like, I don't know, this guy could have transformed himself, but yeah, it's I want to make fitness training better and I want to make the profession better, but most people don't go to the gym, and most people in the gym don't use a coach, and most people don't show up regularly. So that guy's checking most of my boxes, right? Like, that guy's already checking most of my boxes. I think it's a Thomas Plummer line, like, we got to try to motivate the metal man off the magnetic couch, right? That's our goal. But yeah, I think that's the part is that, man, that guy's in, training hard and like, I'm with you, like, well done. Like, I just want to be his friend, right? I just want to congratulate him. And like I said, I don't know the battle that anybody's fighting, right? He may have been down 200 pounds already and be the world's foremost expert on fat loss as far as I'm concerned, right? So that sometimes you see a guy like that, right, and you realize that his transformation alone outperforms all your clients in the last 3 months. Right, like all your clients together, he beat you by just his and that's the other part. Like, man, that consistency and intensity, it takes you a long way, man. Right, and that's why some poorer coaches can do very well financially, because they bring the energy, right? They're trying their best, they bring the energy, and they push people hard, right? And as people improve because of that. And if they combine that with good programming and listen to this podcast, the results would be magical. But with those first three, the bringing the energy, the consistency, and the intensity, a magical program is nothing. It doesn't exist.
All right, so let's go back to kind of your evolution as this savage generalist, and as anybody who's watching the video of this, they can see you got a rich mahogany bookcase behind you, filled with many leather-bound books. You're big on reading. You offer a free reading list that I've actually signed up and gotten myself. But talk about how you read from outside of training. Those aren't all training books behind you. You're reading sales, personal development, time management. So as a coach or trainer, how do we get better at learning those things?
So the first thing is, I think now, I think when I went to college, I think we were all about the same age. Finding information was actually challenging, right? You had to seek it out and find it, and that was a challenge. Now young coaches have the reverse, is that to filter information is. I did my undergrad thesis on creatine, and there's maybe 45 studies in the world at the time, right? Now if you put creatine into Google, there'll be a million hits. Even in the scientific journals, there's hundreds of thousands. And by the time you read the first 1,000, there'll be another 500. So a young coach now has to filter information a little harder. So I think that one of the ways that I liked reading, but now there's with YouTube and with podcasts, there's other ways of learning. So I think committing to learning is more important than just reading. Back in my day, there were no real audio programs. There were no podcasts. My wife actually, during lockdown, she started listening to audiobooks doing cardio. Like, she competes at Ironman triathlons and stuff. So, and I'd never done that. I'd kind of just put music on, and so that kind of flipped for me too. That I'd listen to podcasts training, right? I'd get some education and doing cardio. So I think a good rule is and I got this from Martin Rooney, I believe, is that don't believe everything you read, but also don't just read everything that you believe. Go challenge yourself and read a book that's outside of your training area. Like go if you're a ballistic kettlebell Olympic lifting guy, go read a book by Arthur Jones or Ken Hutchins on super slow training and machine training, and find a few things in there that still apply. And then a good rule I do is I audit like myself every kind of 90 days. And like, if I look at the training process, like do I get results? Do I keep people? Then I need more clients. Are people coming in and not signing up? Then I don't understand sales. I should learn that, because I can't help people if I can't bring them in. And if everybody that comes in and sees me signs up, then I'm good at sales, but I don't have enough people coming in, then I better understand marketing. And marketing is just communicating your message. It doesn't mean advertising. It means communicating your message. You could be putting out free content. But if you don't understand that, how are you going to help people? Right? Because we've all known the guy he's really good at the thing, but no one knows he's there because he has this weird, like, I don't market at all. That's like, all my results all my clients are from word of mouth. Like, you're just admitting you don't know what you're doing and getting your message out there. And if you had the cure to cancer, wouldn't you want people to know? And that's how I feel about our training program. I feel we're so good. I can help everybody. And they have to know about it. So when you start looking like that, then you realize that the same books that you read on training, the same articles and websites that you went to in training, there's people who exist in the sales world who are that person. There's people who exist in marketing who are that person. When you have a team, you got to learn. Like I've always felt like the first thing that most of us did professionally in sports was be a trainer. And now you don't have a coach. Now you don't have a business coach, right? When I was learning taekwondo, I had a coach. When I was learning to swim, I had a teacher. All through my life, I had coaches and instructors. And so when you open your business, I feel like there's holes in your game. And you can, at a certain income level, to be honest, a level of success is you try to identify who you want to work with, not what you need to learn. But when you're coming up as a younger coach, you've got to learn the topics. You got to learn the different sort of areas. So you're going to look at what books to pick up and what courses to do. So a good rule I use is a 5-3-1 rule. If you want to learn marketing, even if you just go to Amazon and you look at the top 5 books on marketing and you buy them, you should be able to read a book a week, right? Or a book every month, whatever, right? But if you look at the top 5 books on marketing and pick them up, that'll be the first thing. Then I would look at 3 audio courses or even podcasts in the area that you're wanting to learn and consume them. And then there's magic and live events, as you can speak to, like this. There's more to the Perform Better events than just the topics in the rooms, right? The conversations in the hallways and the other people that you meet. So, I mean, if I wanted to really get into like business, I'd get 5 business books, 3 business podcasts or audio programs, and I'd go to 1 live event in 90 days. At the end of that, you'll probably be better than most people, right? That's how you expand. So I think it's just this understanding that there's the holes in your game. I used the phrase when we first opened Results Fitness that with my degrees and all my certifications, I was probably a black belt in training, but I was a white belt in business and operations. I had no idea of billing or anything like that, right? So the idea being is that anything that you want to learn, there's someone is the best in the world at it, and all you got to do is invest, a few dollars in getting their books and educational material and studying it. And it's once you get into the habit of learning, and I whatever 10 minutes a day or something, it just adds up. Like putting a podcast on the commute to work instead of the sports radio, that'll move the needle, and you start to move the needle. Like I've always said, most of us never tried to learn a song. Like, I'm probably showing my age, Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi or Don't Stop Believing. But we just heard it and it gets embedded into your brain. So audio courses can be like that too, that you put the time in and you'll soak it in. So it feels like Sundays, even if you're reading and you're not taking it in, some of it's going in, right? You're downloading some of the software into your head. So it's everything. So everybody out there, everything you want to know, there's somebody out there who's written the book on it or the course on it, and it's just there for you to consume.
Couldn't agree more wholeheartedly. And I'm a complete Audible junkie. And I probably rip through at least 15 audiobooks a year, if not more. And it's just like you said, it's just in that drive to work or drive to go out and do different things that I'm doing. And I'm hitting 20, 30 minutes a day. When you add that up, it adds up almost to the equivalent of like a college semester that you're getting, right? Just in your downtime.
Yeah.
And time that you were doing, like, so what, and as opposed to, like you said, I'm going to listen to sports radio and hear, what fictitious trade Jimmy from Yonkers is going to come up with for the Yankees. It's
funny, as we went to a boxing match at when it was Staples Center years ago, and we're driving home, Rachel's driving home, and I'm looking up websites to see what people had said about the fight. And then we're getting home and I'd recorded it and I was going to watch it again. And I've got my laptop open, pulling up other websites. And she's like, "What is wrong with you? You were there. You saw it." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. This is like after Monday Night Football, guys are listening on Tuesday morning to see what the sports reporter thought of the game that they watched. Right? Read something else. Right? Learn something else."
So I will also back up something and kind of tell a quick story that I actually shared with you personally at Perform Better this year, and want to thank you for the inspiration for it. Talking about that personal interaction at things like Perform Better. And I had gone to one of your original results fitness courses that you did out here on the East Coast when I had my facility. And so took that, and then you kind of challenged the room and said, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" And write that down. And I said to you, I said, "Look, Alan, one day I'm going to present at Perform Better with you." And the answer is great. It was like, "Well, let's fucking do it." And that's a horrible Scottish accent, by the way, but it was that stuck in my head. And it was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Now, I got stuck in this rut of kind of this imposter syndrome and not thinking I'm not ready. And then finally this year I got to do it. And I think we actually were speaking at the same time, which was a very, very cool experience for me. And I thank you for that, kind of that poke in the chest to say, like, yeah, do it. Don't just talk about it.
I think there's a thing, and the reason I challenge people like that is when some people are afraid to write that down because it becomes real, right? Like when you're still in your head, it's just like a dream, right? Like you're saying, "I'd like to do that one day." I'm like, right, I want you to verbalize it and write it down and come right out and say, "I want to be a Perform Better." And then the other way to do it is to give yourself a deadline on it. And then I like what has to happen for that to happen, right? And for you, it was overcoming the imposter syndrome part. Is that like I think in the beginning people think like, man, Gray Cook and Stuart McGill and Mike Boyle will all be in my room, and I don't know what to say to them. They're never going to be the guys who judge you. They're all, because all of them are super cool. 2, they're not your audience anyway, right? But Three is you've got something to offer and you're doing the world a disservice by not telling. This is when you get over yourself with marketing stuff, because you're doing a disservice by not giving the world your gifts, right? And that's up to you to do it. But the most important thing for everybody listening is when you put that goal out of your head and onto paper, or you verbalize it, something happens, right? And it's, I say this like, I mean, how many yellow cars did you see this morning? And people are like, I don't know, none. Well, you weren't paying attention is what happened. You didn't see the yellow cars because you weren't tuned into it. When you get your goal, like I want to be a speaker at Perform Better, you start to realize that certain opportunities start appearing, that you could do a local talk, you could do a lunch and learn with one of your clients, and you eventually get the reps in, right? And then you become an accomplished speaker, right? So, but until you make it real, and my idea is at the end of that, as the instructor in the room, when you have the courage to write it down and verbalize it, all I have to do then is give you your first piece of encouragement, right? I could easily go, now some guys will respond to that. They'll be like, I'll show him, right? But other guys at a subconscious level, that crushes them. So your goal is, when you got the courage to stand up and go, here's what I want to do. My goal is, all right, let's fucking do it. Like, what do we need? What do we need to do? Let's figure this out, right? Let's make we're here and we have to be here. What is that gap? That gap is usually education and action. What do we have to do? What do we have to learn? What do we have to do? What do we have to learn? What do we have to do? And then we just move it closer to the goal, and then boom, here we are.
So speaking at the same time, there is that pressure there of, okay, I got to outperform the person in the next room. You just recently spoke at Perform Better with your wife in the same time slot. Who really had more people in the room?
I think, well, she's not here, right? And I won't tell this podcast. It was definitely me by a lot. No, the other part is Rachel's a very accomplished speaker, for guys who don't know. Like, she's not a newbie to the field. So this year, the Perform Better guys usually keep us apart and we speak at different times. But Rachel was actually brought in as a last minute replacement for somebody in Rhode Island, so she was slotted up against me. And yeah, she had a much bigger room than me, actually. I'll add though that it's friendly competition. I'm excited that her room is full, right? And it was actually kind of cool for us to both go at the same time, because I think in terms of the total audience in Rhode Island, that we had a bigger percentage overall than we normally would have if we go separately, right? Because some people would have come to see us both. And the other thing too is, I think my title was like on a, client acquisition or something. Hers is coaching women over 40, right? So that title was hot. Like, I told her, just teach that, do a new version of that same target market next year. So yeah, but she definitely had more in my room. But the other thing I'll add for the young presenter, regardless of how many is in your room, they came to see you, right? And I seen Anthony Rena wrote an article. I think he saw like Metallica or Black Sabbath or something in a small bar in upstate New York, and he goes, they played like it was Madison Square Garden, right, on a Saturday night. Like, they didn't care it was small. They just came and they rocked the mic and did a great show. So I hear some young coaches say, oh man, I'm up against Mike Boyle or Gray Cook and no one's going to be in my room. Yes, there will be, and those people chose to come and see you over everybody else, so you owe them your best stuff, right? And my first ever talk for PB was last on a Sunday in Chicago. And maybe there was,
when the guys hitting you in the foot with the vacuum in the hotel.
Yeah. It's like the lights are all off and they're pulling the chairs out as I'm there. There's 8 people in my room, but that's where I've went on to do seminars around the world, and I've been a keynote at Perform Better. But it all starts with you do your show because these people come to see you.
Yeah, there's a post that I put up a couple weeks back talking about that, with using a video Tom Brady had, talking about when he was at Michigan. And he said he would only get 2 reps in practice because he was like 5th or 6th string. And he was bitching to one of his coaches, and his coach said, look, you can't control that. You can only control those 2 reps. And so he said that completely changed my mind. And I made those 2 reps like it was the Super Bowl with 2 minutes left. And he goes, and 2 reps turned into 4, and 4 reps turned into 8, and 8 turned into eventually he became who he was, because every rep is important. So, and I said that same story of when I started out 25 years ago, and the only clients I got were from the free corrugated box at the front desk that said, enter to win a free training session. And I would train them all. And I treated those free sessions like I was training the Super Bowl MVP, because I wanted to do that someday. And you don't just wait until that someday to be that person.
Yeah, I think and I think some young coaches listening to this, that there's nothing wrong with, sponsoring a few clients, sponsoring a few new clients for a short period of time and get some more work in. Like, I mean, you got to see it, Brady's at Michigan, that the 7th-string quarterback is getting no reps, right? He would give anything for 2 reps, right? And that's the idea, is it, and you move up. And I think that there is and if you think of buckets of personal development, it starts with knowledge, which you can get from books and courses and mentors, but then it goes to skills. And the only way to get skills is with reps, right? So if I was starting over right now, I would be recruiting clients to train with me for 4 weeks in exchange for testimonials and social media posts, because I got space anyway, right? I may as well fill it up with a few people and get the reps in and train some people. And then eventually you'll reach a level where you'll do speaking engagements for free at some point, and at some point in your career, you just it doesn't make sense anymore. You're able to make a living from that. But it starts with knowledge, then it goes to skills, and skills is about getting your reps in.
All right, so we got a couple minutes left. Let's first talk about what you're working on now and what kind of projects you're involved in. You've already told us very clearly you want nobody buying your old books, right? Mm-hmm. They're out of date and worthless. But tell what we should do, because if I want to be Alwyn Cosgrove, learn from Alwyn Cosgrove, what's the best way to do that?
I have a membership website. It's it should redirect to resultsfitnessinnercircle.com, but the actual URL is resultsfitnessuniversity.com/innercircle, where every course I've ever done, every seminar I've done is recorded and uploaded there, and I add one new one a month, which was really started doing this during the lockdown. So a lot of it was just recording me sitting in this room, on Zoom recording them. And I do a monthly open call where people can come and see me. So if you're going to invest in anything, that's where I would direct your resources. I'm also on Instagram, and I get a lot of messages there, but I do try my best to answer anybody that reaches out to me. I have a free group on Facebook, but if you go to the Instagram page, there's a little link tree thing there, and you can see all the resources there. In terms of what I'm working on personally, we talked earlier about the UFC. UFC is an organization for a sport called mixed martial arts, and most people have heard of Spartan training or Tough Mudder. They're organizations for a sport called obstacle course racing. So I just got back about a month ago from the World Obstacle Course Racing Championships, which is in Belgium, and I was the head coach for the US national team. So I think that sport is growing, and it's really, I got into it because no one had really figured out the training stuff for it, Eric. It was all it was a unique thing, right? And so I was intrigued by how would you develop this athlete for a sport that didn't used to exist, right? Like if you took over a rugby team, there's good stuff out there you can look at, right? If you took over anything, but if there was just a tournament out here for underwater hockey, I'm serious, underwater hockey, all right, that the cardio requirements for that might be a little unique, right? I might have to create something. So I got interested with the obstacle course racing, and I'll be doing some work with the USA OCR, which is the governing body. And then I really leaned into coach education. I still train a few people at the gym, but in terms of hierarchy of activities, I think developing my staff becomes higher than programming, becomes higher than coaching, right? So I really leaned into that, and that's kind of how the Results Fitness Inner Circle came, where I'm hoping to. I don't think the world needs more gyms; it needs better people in them, better coaches and better trainers, and I think that's my. I feel passionate about it, and I think that's what my calling is right now.
Well, we certainly appreciate it.
My book behind me there, the Secrets of Successful Program Design. That's the newest one. It's the first one aimed really at coaches and not just at enthusiasts.
Awesome. Well, we'll have all those links on there. And before we wrap up, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you and Mike are part of a special club, and it's a club I want no part of being in. And we talk about like what we teach as a living, and we're even labeled as strength coaches. But strength is not how much you could lift or how much you could move. Strength is what you two guys have done. And you're both cancer survivors. And you've been able to not only get through that personally, but you've been able to take that and inspire so many people with your story. And so with that, I need to commend you for that. And it's been an inspiration for so many people beyond what fitness is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's there's a phrase like how strong are you, and being strong is all you have left, right? Like that's the thing. So yeah, and it's funny, my checkup is next week, and I feel fine, but it's still like a mind game when you're going in for that,
Mike just hit his 2-year mark, and the quote, and I think this is the perfect way to wrap it up, that I saw that someone posted of yours, is there is no bad days, there's just good days and great days.
Yeah, I think I got that from Lance Armstrong, actually, that after cancer there's no such thing as a bad day, only good days and great days, and I try to live by that.
Love it. And I appreciate your time, appreciate everything you do, Alwyn. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Eric.
All right. Thank you for listening. And this has been the Principles of Performance podcast. Thank you for listening to the Principles of Performance podcast. If you've enjoyed our content, please like and share on your social media outlets, as well as subscribe and give us a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your preferred platform is to listen to. For more information on the Principles of Program Design courses and workshops, visit us at www.principlesofprogramdesign.com and follow us on all of the social media channels where we post new content every day. To save 10% on any PPD courses, enter the discount code PRINCIPLESPODCAST10 at checkout. If you have any questions we can answer or suggestions for the show, you can email us at info@principlesofprogramdesign.com or message us on social media. Thank you again for your support.